Welcome to the podcast. It's the magical holidays. Time for Joe watching 60 Christmas movies in 60 days. Why, you might ask? Because it sounds like a crazy task to be watching 60 Christmas movies in 60 days. It'll be struggle, no I won't lie. By the halfway point I will lose my mind, but with your support I'm gonna be fine. So let's have a blast on this Christmas time. Join me now and let's find out about today's Christmas movie. Was it good or bad? Happy or sad? Is there another dead mom and dad? Let's get to it with no delay. It's your old pal Joe and he's happy to say welcome to Joe watches 60 Christmas movies in 60 days.
How's it going, everybody? It's me, it's your old pal Joe, and welcome to episode 3 of Joe watches 60 Christmas movies in 60 days. We're still kicking it. We're still on duty. I'm tired. Today and yesterday, they were tired days. They were down days. Things are not going well. But I'm gonna stick with it because it's not all I have, but it's the big thing I'm working on right now. So let's keep at it. This is episode 3. This is movie number 3. And I hope you've enjoyed the season so far. I'm going to just put this out there, and I'll mention it a few times over the course of the series, and actually, I might just forget. But if you like what you've heard and you'd like to have more, I'm going to be starting a Patreon again for this season. It's going to be going through November and December of 2024, if that matters. And it's going to be covering a few things. Basically, what you're going to get is an episode every week of bonus content where I'm going to be talking about a TV show Christmas episode, harkening back to what I did before, but unfortunately a little bit less simply because I got overwhelmed very easily, and now it's going to be even easier then. Also, there's other tiers. There's a secondary tier. If you want a Christmas card from old Joe, I will send you one. I can't promise it'll be worth your time, but I think it will be. Third tier, a little bit higher. You get a gift from me in the mail. I already have them planned out. I already have mock-ups coming. That's right, I got mock-ups on their way. And so if you're interested in that, and lastly, a fourth tier, which is a second gift from me. It's going to be a little bit bigger than the first tier, maybe a little bit more robust. It'll be, you know what, it's going to be something. And you may or may not enjoy it, but I can promise that it will exist. So if you're interested in more content or you want to support the podcast directly, you can always go to the Patreon, patreon.com/JOEMOC, and I'll be happy to assist you in assisting me there. But if that's not your thing, but you still want to support the podcast, don't forget Season 4 of Joe Watches 60 Christmas Movies in 60 Days is brought to you by the fine folks at Third Eye Comics. Third Eye Comics, they're the largest comic chain in the D.C., Maryland, Virginia area. You can also order anything you want from them. Well, okay, you can't order anything you want. You can order anything they offer that you also want from them at shop.thirdeyecomics.com. Can't talk enough about them, but we're going to keep talking about them for the next, let me check my watch, 57 movies, including this one. Again, I love them to bits. I purchased from there before they sponsor my podcast. I will purchase from there after the podcast season ends. They have incredible customer service. If you order mail order, your order will arrive in tip-top condition. And that's about it. Just check them out. Check them out. Buy something. Tell them you're sent by Joe. Let's make them feel good about helping me out. Now, let's move on to today's movie. Today's movie is The Christmas Brew. I have mixed feelings about this movie. As I watched it, I thought, this is fine, I guess. But then as it got closer to the end, the tropey, cliched things it did to get you excited for the movie, get you feeling good, well, they worked. So by the end of it, I'm like, I don't know, man. Got a couple tears out of me, made me feel good when the good side won at the end. So, I don't know, it's basically, if you want a Christmas movie, that's sort of Christmas. It's more Christmas than other Christmas movies. Then check out The Christmas Brew. I viewed it on Tubi, but you can find it wherever your heart desires. Not true. Again, you can't just find it wherever you want. You're going to have to scour the internet to find out where it's available for your perusal. The Christmas Brew starts out with an overview of what the day in the life is like at the brewery. at which this movie takes place about half the time. So yeah, it's about a brewery. I wasn't sure, just going by the title alone, whether it was about a brewery, which I was hoping for, just because it's totally different than what we're used to, or about a special coffee blend that might be made in tribute to the season, which I can easily see being a plot of one of these movies. You know, hey, Sarah made a new coffee blend. Everybody's loving it, but some evil person tries to steal it. No. This is about beer. I'm not a beer person, but at least it was something different. As I mentioned, we start out by getting kind of a day in the life of the brewery where most of this movie takes place. And then we fade out and we see 7 days until Christmas. And this is when we join our main character. Her name is Tori. We see on the wall of her bedroom a couple of news clippings which feature stories about a restaurant, which we'll later learn was owned by her dad and she helped out at. Wonder what could have happened to him. We'll find out later. We see Tori prettying herself up and then going out into the living room of her apartment where her roommate, Cora, is waiting and lightly mocks her for getting made up. We find out she's mocking her because Tori has a meeting with her boss that morning, and that's why she was dolling herself up, which sounds kind of weird, but it's also because she has a crush on her boss. That sounds even weirder. But one of the caveats here is that he wasn't her boss up until recently. So we're back into less weird, but Cora doesn't care about any of these little side elements. She's just making fun of her friend for getting all dolled up to go meet with her boss. But Tori promises her it's not just about the fact that she has a crush on her boss. Yes, she has a Christmas gift for him, but no, it's also about a proposal that she wants to pitch him for the company at which she works. She works at a company called Bevco. Bevco is, in the world of this movie, an evil conglomerate beverage company who, as we'll learn, basically purchases lots of smaller breweries, I don't know if it's other beverages too, but mostly breweries, and then kind of just absorbs them into their system, most of the time shutting them down, but always sort of homogenizing them, making them very common, making them like anything else that they make, which is, in this world, and in my opinion, bad. But that's where Tori works. That's where her love interest, her boss, Jake, works as well. Now, I mentioned that she has a proposal that she's trying to pitch around. One of her ideas here is that if she can get in good with her boss, Jake, and by get in good, you know what I mean. You know what I'm saying here, folks. If she can get in good with him, then she might have a chance to meet with the board of the company and pitch her idea to them directly. But Jake is kind of the gatekeeper here. And she hopes that if she can impress him, she'll get a chance to impress them. We jump on over to the breakfast. It's happening at a restaurant. We can't really tell much about the restaurant. It does not matter, but I got curious. What kind of restaurant is it they're having a breakfast meeting at? What time is it really? Is it really a breakfast time? Or is it a late morning time? Is it almost, God forbid, a brunch time? Ugh, don't even get me started. I'll never find out. But we do meet Jake there. He apologizes for being late. He got held up buying a gift for his nephew who's all of a sudden into trains, and this was a detail that I appreciated they threw in, but I recorded this, and there's no benefit to knowing that information. This is when we find out some more details about the pitch that Tori has. As I noted, it's an idea for how to guarantee that small, struggling businesses who make good products have a chance for growth that benefits both Bevco, her main company, the company she works for, and the small business. Jake seems intrigued, but is then pulled away for a meeting with the board, which she did not know he had scheduled. So he's barely there at all at breakfast. Also, when he sat down, she chickened out on giving him the gift that she got him, because she said something like, I've been meaning to talk to you for a while. I have something I wanted to mention to you, or I have something for you. And this is an important part of the movie. She says, I have something for you. And he goes, oh, I have something for you too. And he hands her what she thinks is going to be a Christmas gift. Instead, it's a portfolio on a business that the company wants to purchase. And they're going to send Tori to the business. Guess what business it is? It's the brewery from the beginning of the movie. We're going to send Tori to that business to close the deal. One of the board members who they named, but we never saw until the very end of the movie. And it felt like he was a weird ghost character, who was both important but didn't matter to the plot at large. And so every time they mentioned him, I'm like, do I even talk about this guy existing? I don't know. Anyway, the board member went to this brewery, had a terrible time of it, and now wants to purchase it to show that guy what's up. Like, basically, I have more money than you. And they're going to send Tori there to close this deal. So once Tori realizes that this is what her boss, Jake, has for her, she chickens out, does not give him the gift that she got for him, and instead gives him the proposal, which leads us to him abandoning the breakfast, mid-breakfast, not even mid, and then going to have his real meeting with the important people. Oh yeah, before he leaves, he says something like, work hard on this acquisition because it'll impress the board, and you never know, you might get to pitch this to them directly. There's a lot of dangling in front of her, and you don't really... By the end of the movie, I guess we find out that it's not fake, but Jake isn't, spoiler, Jake's not a good guy, and so it's weird that he's being genuine with this, as we'll eventually learn, but he comes off so slimy that you don't know whether to trust him or not. We cut to Tori in her car heading off to the brewery. This is, I think, in upstate New York. That's where this movie takes place. They mentioned it in vague terms here and there, so let's just put the pin in it. We're going to say upstate New York. So she's on her way, and she's letting Cora know that she's going to be going, and she honestly doesn't know how long she'll be away, but hopefully not for long. Hopefully it's just a one and done. She goes there, she talks to them, she convinces them to sell, and she can head back home. Cora thinks she should take her time, have a nice time of it, you know. What else is she doing? You know, just go there, enjoy, have a drink, enjoy yourself. Tori is not into enjoying herself. She's frustrated with herself. She has this gift she didn't, get up the courage to give someone that she likes. And so the last thing she wants to do is anything fun. When she gets to the brewery, she's greeted by a dog named Gordo, who is, I guess, the brewery's dog, but we know who he is. We'll find out. Sorry, I don't know why I said that. We guessed. I know. And we're also greeted by Freddie, who is not the co-owner, but the guy who co-runs the brewery with the owner. We'll meet him in a moment. And Freddie has a new beer that he'd like her to try. He calls it his Cinna Ale. And I had to watch this 4 times before I understood what he was saying. Cinna Ale. On top of that, it's not fun to say. Cinna Ale is not fun to say. I don't know what you could call it instead. Maybe if you have any ideas on what you could call this beer instead of Cinna Ale, you know where to find me, JOEMOC on most social media platforms. So you just let me know what's a better name than Cinna Ale. So she tries it, and she says, that's interesting. He tries and goes, oh my God, that's disgusting. So Freddie fails. And this is a thing that the trope they kind of build into the movie, is that Freddie is not good at making new beers until, spoiler, he is. Anyway, Freddie fails again. This is when Evan, the owner of the brewery, and Tori's true love interest walks in, finds out what Freddie's pushing, and says, Freddie, we talked about this. We don't serve like special beers. And this introduces us to Evan, who is the owner of the brewery, but also, what's important here, he's a control freak. He has to have everything a certain way, the way he wants it, and no other way. For example, letting Freddie try to make new beers for the bar. They have 4 beers. 4 beers, only 4 beers. That's all they're ever going to have. Well, okay, granted, okay, they offer wine, but they also offer some non-alcoholic beverages. But as far as alcoholic beers, 4 beers, only 4 beers. They showed the menu at one point of the 4 beers, and I decided to write down all the details of it. After doing so, I regret it. There's nothing informative here. Oh, I guess it is informative, but there's nothing useful here. But I wrote it all down, which means you get to hear it. The first beer is the Doubleday IPA. Abner Doubleday, a Civil War hero and the father of baseball, or as it's written up there, the baseball. Old school, just like this beer. An English pale ale recipe jacked up with a malt backbone, then loaded with Apollo, Summit, and Simcoe. Those last few words are capitalized as if they are proper nouns. I'm not familiar with them. The second beer is Mike's Brown Bag, a 1903 Longdon brown ale recipe, mahogany in color, light roasty character with a blend of caramel and malt fruitiness, refreshing and flavorful. The third beer, Hopped Up State, our latest example of the style, made with pale malt, golden promise, white wheat, and oats, hopped and dry hopped with Eureka, Galaxy, and Mosaic. Again, those last few words, proper nouns. Lastly, Polino Pilsner, light-bodied with a golden bright color and bready malt character, white fluffy head that delivers its elegant floral and lemon hop aroma, crisp, clean, and easy to drink. None of that means anything to me. She decides on choosing the Doubleday. She tries it. She says, it's incredible. And he's like, he accepts a compliment, but he's also like, yeah, I know. We make good beer here. But because she liked it so much, she leaps right into the pitch. But he cuts her off. He's not interested. He heads into the back of the brewery. She follows him. We find out that the partner who discovered this place already, the board member who's unhappy, the guy that discovered it, already tried to pitch him on selling it to him. And he told him he's not interested. And she says, but you could get this beer to everyone. And he says, I don't need to get my beer to everyone. There's plenty of beer for everyone. And it's not just about the beer. It's about the people. It's about the experience. She begs him to at least let her make him an offer. She pulls out a folded piece of paper and holds it out. He asks, why can't you just tell me what the offer is? It's just us here. It's literally just us here. She says, look, just take it. And this is both a cute thing that the movie does, but also an annoying thing that the movie does. Later on, there's going to be another offer made by, we'll get to it, but it's going to be by Jake later on. And he's going to slide a piece of paper across to Evan. And Evan's going to be like, what is it with you guys and sliding the paper? And then later on, he's going to share what that offer is with Freddie. And he's going to hand him the folded piece of paper. And Freddie's like, what are you doing? And he goes, I don't know. It's just what business people do. And I think it's cute that they're addressing that trope in, I guess, movie business discussions. But you're also performing it. So you're doing this thing that doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't make any sense. I mean, I haven't been a part of a ton of business negotiations that resulted in somebody making a single number offer to somebody else and it having to be slid across the table or folded up and handed in secret. I think the movie just doesn't want to put a number on the brewery because it invites lots of scrutiny and lots of inquiry. Like, does that make sense for a brewery this size, or how much money are they making? Is that offer truly make sense for what's being presented here? And they don't want to do that, so they avoid the number altogether. But I would prefer that they give a number. Put some effort into it. Give a number. And just trust your audience is going to roll with it. Instead of this, which takes me out of the movie, because that's almost what it's designed to do. It's designed to take you out of the movie. Anyway, in this instance, he takes the folded up paper, he looks at it, he crumples it up and tells her to have a good day. He walks away, leaving her defeated. But she also looks around. What does she see? She sees a book about beer written by somebody who inexplicably will matter later in the movie. And she sees a photo of Evan and a young lady, presumably a romantic partner. And then next to that is a stack of envelopes on top of which one reads, past due. So it's a past due bill. Afterward, while getting lunch, Tori updates Jake. And she tells him the guy won't sell. Jake says it's not good enough. He pissed off that partner that tried to pitch him, so the guy wants to buy it more than ever. He tells Tori to get it done, even if she has to lie and tell the brewery guy that he'll maintain full control. Oh, and she can also double the offer if needed. And she can stay as long as needed. So 2 neededs there. I don't know why I wrote it that way, because I'm an idiot. I'm a fool. She heads back to the brewery, and unfortunately, it's closed now. We see that the sign that says it's open, it's closed on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. On Thursday and Friday, it's open from 4 to 10. And on Saturday and Sunday, it's open from noon to 10. Wait a second. So which day of the week is it? Because she was in there earlier. When I wrote this down, I just was like, see, it's not open all the time. But I guess she just walked in when it was unlocked and it wasn't officially open, but now it is locked? Whatever. With the unfortunate news that the brewery is closed for the day, whichever day that is, she finds an inn nearby where she can stay. Upon arriving, we find it's just really a big old house. It's more of a bed and breakfasty type of place than a proper inn. Inside, it's decorated to the hilt with Christmas stuff. Tori is really delighted and charmed by all the Christmas regalia coating the living room area. Inside, an older woman greets her. We find out that this inn has been in her family for generations. So she gets the details of Tori's stay. She also gets pretty nosy. Is it just you, a single woman? And what are you in town for? Things of that nature. And just then, in walks Evan. Turns out Evan is this woman's son. Oh my gosh, what are the odds? I mean, the odds are pretty slim, actually. He is not happy to see Tori. Tori, though, is happy to see him, and she starts making her pitch all over again. He remains steadfast. He is not interested. Evan's mom had left to get the room key. She comes back just in time to hear Tori plead with Evan for just have one drink with me. Just let me have some of your time. I promise it'll be worthwhile. And so, because her son is apparently single, despite what we saw in that photo, and she knows that Tori is on her own, she thinks I'll meet up, these 2 single people, and maybe my son can get hitched and be happy. I don't know. But she pushes for them to go out, and so they do. They head to a restaurant that it's very similar to the one that Tori was at earlier, but it's lit differently, so it could be a completely different setting. Oh, that's right. During this time when the mom is trying to push him to go out with her, Tori mentioned she saw the overdue bills, which is very rude. And Evan cuts her off before she can fully explain what she saw. And so we get a sense that he's hiding that from his mom. But I'll be honest with you, that never comes up again. At no point do they ever have him reveal to his parents that he is doing poorly with the business. In fact, quite the opposite, but I'm not going to jump ahead again. We'll get there when we get there. While they're having dinner or having drinks, whatever they're doing at this place, Tori dives right back into the offer, and they stake out their sides. She wants him to use the money. She wants him to use the money of Bevco, or she wants to use the money of Bevco to help businesses like Evan's stay open. He doesn't buy it, though. If he takes their money, it won't be their place anymore. It'll just be their, the Bevco's place. And he's not going to let it become another bottom line in a big company's ledger. Tori offers up her last offer. What if she could guarantee that Evan would maintain full control? He says that would, in fact, change things. She immediately pulls out the offer packet. Before he digs in, he needs to know, can I trust you? He looks her dead in the eyes. Can I trust you? She gets a little bit sheepish, but she decides to double down and says, yes, you can trust me. But then we can tell by her eyes, she knows that's not entirely true. He starts to read the packet. Later, he drives her back to the inn. I think he also lives there. On the way, they talk about Tori's form of love of Christmas. She says it's harder now to get into Christmas. She doesn't have a big family. It's really just her and her mom is with her new boyfriend. She's spending Christmas with him, so that leaves her without really anybody else to spend it with. When they arrive at the inn, Evan lays it out. The brewery has been struggling for years, so he's addressing the past due bills. If he's going to agree to anything, he wants to make sure it's with the right partner. She understands. Before she heads in to the house, Evan has one more thing for her. He asks if she'd like to help out with a fundraiser the brewery's holding the next night. It's a fundraiser for a local animal shelter. He thinks it might be good for her to see what the town's like and what the brewery, how its relationship with the town is. She's in. Later that night, she's in bed, updating Cora on the comings and goings of her day. She's not sure what'll happen if Evan doesn't give in. She might end up fired. She also admits that she might have misled him about being able to maintain control. And what I thought was odd here is Cora says, that is evil. Then they sort of giggle like, you're being bad. And it's like, that is really bad. That's not just being naughty. You speaking out of turn, or, you gave that guy the wrong phone number. This is damaging. This isn't just giggling about it. This is bad. The next morning, Tori comes downstairs to the dining area to find a young couple enjoying a gigantic platter of breakfast foods. I'm not going to get into the details of what's there. Just imagine, you yourself, imagine you come downstairs and it's time for breakfast and you see a table full of foods that you enjoy. That's what's on that table. The young couple and Tori make small talk. We find out that they come to the town every year, or they try to at least come every year for Christmas, because that is in fact where they met, and they love this small town. I know they probably said the name of the town at some point. I never caught it, so it doesn't matter what town it is. It's just this small town. Evan stops into the dining area to see if Tori is ready. She is not, so she hurries upstairs to get ready. This leaves the young couple to tell Evan that, you know what, that woman seems super cute, even if she works for the evil Bevco. We cut to Evan, Tori, and Gordo the dog heading to the brewery. When they arrive, Evan apologizes for being so judgmental the day before. His guard goes up when dealing with people like her kind, if you will. This offends Tori. Her kind. Yeah, big city, loads of cash. I'm not like that at all. And all he does is say, I'm sorry, again. They bicker for a bit. She decides to prove that she's not evil by telling the story of her dad. And this is when we learn the news clippings from the beginning refer to a restaurant that her dad opened and ran. It was a dream of his to run this restaurant, but he didn't run it particularly well. They were always living and dying by, a few cents here and there. The budget was always tight. They never made loads of money. And eventually he got sick. They had to close the restaurant, and he passed away. And when he died, they turned the place into a 7-Eleven. Her point of telling the story, she says, is to make sure that Evan's Brewery is still around next year, and even the year after that. We rejoin them working on decorations for the fundraiser. Tori gets an idea. Bevco sponsors events like this all the time. Maybe she can get them to throw in some money, maybe matching the donations. And he gets really mad. I see what you're getting at. Just throwing money at me. They bicker some more, which is not really that fun because it just passes. It starts up and passes immediately. She calms this fire of uncertain rage by saying that, you know what, I'm allowed to double the offer. You're not supposed to know this, but I can double the offer. And that catches Evan off guard, so he lowers his temperature a bit. Freddie comes in to check out on some work stuff. He gets curious to see what Tori's up to and finds out he finds out that money for the brewery might be available. But not all the details of what's going on. Evan shuts the conversation down before Freddie finds out more, and I think because then again he's losing control of where the information is, and if he can make a decision all on his own without somebody else telling him he should or shouldn't do something. This is when we get more explicit details about Evan being a stick in the mud and not wanting to lose control, basically what I said earlier. Later, Tori is back at the inn getting ready for the fundraiser when Jake checks in, her boss, don't forget. He says some obnoxious things about the meeting that he went to with the board members the morning before, and talking about drinking old whiskey and, feeling it the next day, bullshit like that. He also says there's no chance the company can match donations, and he makes excuses about it. Well, you never know what that charity might be involved in, and so we can't just give them money because it'll make it look us bad, so we have to run this up the flagpole, and that's going to take forever, so really we can't do anything to help them. Downstairs, Evan and his mom chat about whether he has any interest in Tori. He is certain he does not, but then she comes down wearing a dress that the inn owner said, she didn't bring any fancy clothes for a fundraiser. So she said, don't worry, we have some clothes that are left behind. You're welcome to try some of those on. One of them is a pretty dress. She puts the pretty dress on, and oh man, Evan is like, oh man, she looks so pretty. So maybe he is interested in her. At the fundraiser, Tori chats with the couple from earlier at the breakfast table. They say that this town has the nicest people. Then they point out people around the room. For example, the woman who runs the animal shelter that the fundraising money is going towards. They also ask about Tori's day with Evan. She says it was fine. They mentioned something about Evan having gone through some sort of trauma or hard time, and it's genuinely so hard to understand what they're saying because of their accent, but maybe it's just bad audio. But I could not figure out what it was. Something about like, oh, he's gone through so much, but I wish it was that simple. Anyway, Freddie shows up and has a surprise for Evan. He knows this is the fundraiser still, don't forget. So everybody's there having a good time drinking. There's a woman singing on stage, and Freddie shows up and he goes, I have a surprise for you, Evan. Do you see at the front of the room, that box right there? That's a donation box, so people can donate even more money. And he goes, oh, wow, okay, that's weird. Why didn't you tell me about that? Well, the singer stops singing and says, hey, everybody, I don't know if you noticed, there's a donation box up front, and there's a note on it that says, if we raise $1,000, Evan will come up and sing a song for everybody. And Evan hears this and is like, I didn't agree to this, but he says it quietly so he doesn't look uncool. I didn't agree to this. And then he just grabs a guitar and goes up on stage. They didn't actually say the part where they have met that amount of money. They just sort of skipped that part. I thought it would be later in the evening or something. Or like Freddie would say, we've raised $1,000. And then Evan would go, what do you mean you've raised $1,000? In what? That donation box. Oh, that's great. But also, I put a note on there that says, you would do this thing if we met that amount. So Evan goes up and he sings a song, and it sounds fine. It's fine. It's not bad at all. It's fine. Oh, he does tell a story about how he hasn't played in a long time. He wasn't expecting to play there, and that things have been hard for him, and that we learned that the animal shelter that this money is going towards is the same animal shelter where he got Gordo, and Gordo has gotten him through so many hard times, bad times. We'll find out what happened eventually. And so he's going to sing this song dedicated to Gordo. Gordo doesn't give a shit, though. Unfortunately, he's a dog. So he sings a song, and it sounds fine. Everybody loves it. And we can see in Tori's eyes that she thinks it's even better than fine. And she's all gaga for him now. Like, oh, wow, he's so handsome. And he can sing. And he's singing a song about, dedicated to his dog. What a catch. I would like to catch that catch. After everyone leaves, Tori and Evan chat. She tells him that it was quite the performance. We find out he hasn't performed in 6 to 7 years. He's vague about what caused him to stop. Tori asks about the photo in the back with the woman, and so Evan is now less vague about what caused him to stop. Was that your wife? He nods. Is she? He nods. She apologizes, but he says, no, it's okay. Then he explains a bit of their backstory. They opened the brewery before they were even married. Then she got sick. It happened fast. And then this leads to him talking about a potential partner for her. Does Tori have anybody in her life? She clams up other than saying she has nobody. He can tell that there's more and draws it out of her. She comes clean. She's been hung up on someone for years. Does he know how you feel? No. And he's her boss. Oh my gosh. Saying it out loud to somebody else who I guess she now has feelings for, she can hear how ridiculous it is. Now, it's not, their feelings themselves aren't ridiculous, but trying to make them manifest in such an awkward and uncomfortable situation, that is ridiculous in the way where you go, it's just unlikely to happen. So now she's very self-conscious, I can't believe that this is what I'm saying. I can't believe that this is what I'm feeling. Evan asks if there's any chance that the guy might be into her, And she goes, no, he's not into me. And he goes, well, if that's true, he's an idiot. And so then she's taken aback, like, really? Do you think that that's true? And he says, yeah, I mean, look at me. I should hate you, but there's something about you. You're nicer than I first thought you'd be. She takes it as a big compliment, and it is, and says, you are also nicer than I thought you'd be. They lean in for a kiss, but then he pulls back. He says, wait, I see what you're doing. Again, I see what you're doing. You're just trying to trick me. Tori is obviously and understandably very offended about this. She goes, look, we're both a bit drunk. She expresses her offense and then just tries to call off the whole will they, won't they kiss and says, look, we've both been drinking. Maybe we should just go home. How are we going to get home? We're both a bit drunk. Just then, Freddie walks in. He can drive him. And they ask him, were you there the whole time? And he goes, oh, yeah, I was doing some work back there. Could you hear everything? Oh, yeah. And Evan, you're an idiot. And Tori feels a bit vindicated to hear this. The next morning, a very groggy and maybe hungover, but definitely groggy Tori is awoken by a call from Jake checking in on things. She confirms that she hasn't closed the deal yet and then announces, and he says, well, guess what? And reinforcements are on the way. I'm coming to town. She darts awake at this point. She is not okay with any of that. Jake explains that the board member that started this whole thing wants it done as soon as possible and has added Jake to this process to make sure it gets done that quickly. He says, we'll tag team on just like the old days, and I'll be there in a few hours. She says, oh boy. At the brewery, Tori arrives with Jake in tow. Gordo the dog immediately growls at him, so we know that he's a bad guy because the dog doesn't like him. The dog doesn't like somebody, so they're a bad guy. Evan has to call Gordo off. Evan does that whole polite but stern deal with him, like, oh, glad you could make it. Oh, really? Would you like to show me around? No, not particularly. That kind of a thing. Jake asks if he can try one of those cool cruisers. He does. They have the character called beers. One of those old cool cruisers. Is that a thing? Is that a term for beer that I've not heard of? Evan is very frustrated and annoyed that he called a beer a cool cruiser. We then get a series of moments where Jake embarrasses himself by being out of touch. For example, Evan offers him a double day, and he goes, well, no, one drink's enough. And then Evan says it is just one drink. It's called a double day. And he goes, I knew that. I just meant, one drink's enough for me. I don't really need to try more than one. You know what I'm saying. Eventually, Jake tries a beer, and he makes a very bitter face. He then cuts to the chase because he does not want to keep drinking that beer. He would like to talk about the partnership. Is Evan free for dinner that night? Tori tries to interject, saying, this is not what we were planning. This is not what I've been working towards. And also, I don't think that Evan thinks highly of you, and I don't know how I feel about you, so this might not be the best way to get this job done. She tries to interject that without saying any of that. But Evan is, got his dander up now that this guy's arrived, and he knows that this guy is a romantic rival, at least insofar as Tori has had feelings for him. And he also doesn't seem to care about Tori, so he's angry with this guy. So he's like, yeah, you know what, actually, dinner tonight, that sounds great. At said dinner, Jake tries to push things along with the agreement and asks where the offer was last at. Tori confirms it was doubled. Evan says, yeah, it's fine, it was doubled, but it's not about the money anyway. Jake then slides a new piece of paper over, as I mentioned earlier. Evan makes fun of it, as I mentioned earlier. But he reads the offer and is a bit shaken by it. It must be pretty high. Jake then mentions the thing about Evan being able to keep control. Evan confirms that might be the deal breaker, or not the deal maker, the deal maker, I guess. That and his trust in Tori. Tori smiles when she hears that. Jake has one last card up his sleeve. He can get Harvey Crampton, famous beer writer Harvey Crampton, to come to the brewery. And we'll find out that this is the same guy who wrote the book that Tori saw earlier in the back of the brewery. I don't think this is because of Tori, but maybe it was. Maybe she mentioned that she saw that book. I don't know. Anyway, Evan is blown away at this possibility. He's read all of Harvey's books. He's why Evan even does what he does. And then Jake says, okay, how about this? Evan will be coming to the brewery the next day. If he likes what he tries, and Jake is certain he will, Jake is doing that pandering thing. Oh, I'm certain he's going to love what he tries. It will put the brewery into a new stratosphere. Evan is in. Not necessarily in for the deal just yet, but in a general sense to move to this next step. Later that night, Evan checks in on Tori in her room. The first thing he says is, that's the guy you're hung up on? But then he promises to move on, not to make her feel any worse. He spies Tori's new business proposal and fingers through it. He's really impressed by what he sees. But that's not why he's there. He's there because a few months ago, he took out a loan from his dad to keep the brewery open. He hasn't been able to talk to his dad ever since. He explains that this is because it proves... he explains that he's mentioning this because it proves that he has trouble accepting help. He should not have treated her the way he did. when she first came to town. She accepts his apology. This is the second time he has apologized for treating her poorly. And granted, he sort of went back after the last apology, and when he was like, I see what you're doing here. You're trying to kiss me for me to sign a deal. But it's also kind of ground we've already trod over. We don't have to have him going back to the first time they met on day 3 or day 4 at this point. Evan, whether he's talking about the deal or talking about some sort of connection between he and Tori, asks, this could be good, right? She hesitates but confirms it's definitely good. He then moves on to the night before when they almost kissed. She says, look, it was probably just the beers. And he goes, oh, it was probably just the beers? Okay. And then he leaves. But he's not offended. He says, okay, that's cool. And he leaves. We then cut to Tori in Jake's room. She's pacing back and forth, really nervous, really upset. She doesn't want to hurt these people. She doesn't want to hurt this town. She doesn't want to hurt Freddie. She definitely doesn't want to hurt Evan. They need to back off of the part of the deal where they're saying that they can keep control. That's just not going to happen, and they can't keep lying to them about this. She thinks if they do it the right way, if they do it in a certain way with a lot of care, that won't be a deal breaker. Jake blows it off at first, but then agrees to say something. He says, like, I'll talk to him the next day, and I'll leave you out of it. I'll act like it's just me. It's me that's having to renege on that part of the deal. But he does have a question for Tori. Have you caught feelings for this guy? She promises she hasn't. And he goes, good, because, I don't know, this might be crazy, but I always thought that maybe we'd have a chance together. But maybe that was all in my head. She assures him it wasn't all in his head. Once he hears that, he goes, you know what? The board has recognized how hard you've been working and looking at maybe getting you your own team. She beams when she hears this. He says, we can talk more about things when we get back to town. So you see here, this is the dichotomy of Jake, the two sides of the Jake coin. He acts like he's interested in her, and it's not fake. We'll see eventually that he's not lying about that. So he was interested in her, even presumably before he became her boss. And so then you sort of wonder, like, is he really planning to push her worth to the board in hopes of getting her a better position, getting her somewhere closer to where she wants to be? And again, the answer seems to be yes. So it really just boils down to the fact that Jake is kind of a shithead, and that's why we're rooting against him. Not because he's a liar, at least not to Tori. They are on the same side as far as he's concerned. We jump over to Evan having a serious talk with Freddie. He tells him about the big meeting with Tori and Jake. He says, I don't like Jake, but it went well. I'm thinking about selling. He says, I consider you a partner, and I want to make sure that you're on board for this. He shows him the offer. They do that joke about why is it folded? Why can't you just tell me? And Freddie is shocked to see that number. And instead of giving a response, instead he just stands up and gives Evan a giant hug. And that's when he makes an announcement. His wife is pregnant. This money is going to make a huge difference in their life. It's got to happen. Like it's going to be so beneficial for them. And now the baby that's on the way. They sort of celebrate, but Evan is now very nervous about the beer writer coming the next day. Cut to the morning, Freddie and Evan arrive at the brewery to find Jake already waiting for them. He says he has something he wants to talk about one-on-one with Evan. It basically boils down to, if the beer writer likes the beer, a.k.a. they make the beer writer's top 10, Evan gets the money and keeps the control of the whole place. If not, he doesn't like the beer, if it doesn't make the top 10, we're going to cut the offer, still something he thinks Evan will appreciate, but they're going to cut the offer and they'll take control of the brewery. Evan thinks it over, and again, he doesn't like this guy, so he's like, yeah, you know what? I agree to this terms. Jake leaves, and just then Freddie immediately darts out of the brewery. There's an emergency. The power has gone out. The beer is all warm, and the writer's going to be here in an hour. It turns out that this lack of electricity is the result of, well, one of those unpaid bills. Evan heads home to grab a space heater, and he calls a pal to use that pal's generator. When he gets back, we find out Freddie was unsuccessful in negotiating with the power company. He said, Freddie, call the electric company, see what you can do. Anyway, he was unsuccessful in negotiating with them, and so they try to figure out what they can do. The taps are not going to cool in time if they use the generator. They only have a non-alcoholic and some bottles in the fridge, which they could cool in time. There's also something new Freddie's been working on. Just then, Jake and Tori arrive. Tori tries to talk to Evan about the discussion that he had with Jake, but Evan is just so distracted. He's just like, no, it's fine. Everything's great. It's good. We can tell that she doesn't know exactly what Jake agreed to. She tries to apologize because she thinks that Jake has come clean about that part of the deal. And so she wants to apologize to Evan. But Evan's not really hearing it because he's losing his mind about what's happening with no electricity and only having warm beer. And so he's like, no, it's fine. It's fine. Everything's okay. Just then the beer rider arrives. He wants a double day, but then changes his mind. He doesn't want a double day. Thank goodness there isn't a double day. And instead they'll take a Pilsner. And what's great is the beer that Freddie's been working on is in fact a Pilsner. Evan grabs the one bottle that they have ready, and the rider takes a sip. He thanks Evan and immediately heads out. No small talk or feedback. Everyone is stunned. What does it mean? Evan tries what he poured. Oh no, it's terrible. He immediately runs out. Freddie tries it and he goes, it's flat. The bottle must have been opened, or at least not airtight. Evan is distraught. He tries to catch the guy. The guy's already gone. He can't stop him. Tori tries to comfort Evan, but nothing will help. She says she's sorry. He doesn't buy it. You got what you wanted. There was never a world where we got to keep control of the brewery, was there? Tori doesn't know what to say because she knows that, in fact, wasn't true. And he tells her to leave, so she does. Outside, she asks Jake what happened in there. What happened with your talk? He comes clean about what he said and how he kind of modified the deal. She's furious. He tries to calm her down with an update that the same board member that keeps coming up in this damn story about wanting to buy this brewery, he mentions that he wants to have dinner with the both of them when they get back to town. She doesn't reply and instead just leaves. Inside, Evan tells Freddie that they need to talk because what Freddie doesn't know is that there was a secondary element to this meeting with the beer writer where they don't make the top 10. The deal's not only going to happen, but it's going to be happening at a lower price. We fade and we see the words 2 days until Christmas. Tori is back home. She's chatting with Cora, who's on her way out to spend Christmas with her family. Cora invites Tori to come with her since we know that she doesn't have any other family that she can easily spend Christmas with. But Tori says, no, I'm already going to this dinner tonight with Evan and the board member, so I got something I have to take care of. Later at the restaurant, Jake and Tori wait for this board member. He notices that she brought her business proposal, the one about how to help small businesses stay in business and how to make it less overwhelming for Bevco to own them, that kind of a thing. He says, you know what? Why don't we hold off on pitching that tonight? Because we don't want to overwhelm him with questions. Let's just see what he wants to talk about. Let's chat with him, and maybe we'll bring this up in a subsequent meeting. She agrees. Oh, and he has something for Tori. He pulls out a little teeny gift box, and inside is a beautiful necklace. And when I say beautiful, I mean she says it's beautiful. To me, it seems like just any other necklace. Tori is stunned at how nice it is. He says, look, you're my partner in crime, even if I don't acknowledge it enough. He continues to talk and talk and talk and says they also helped a guy get back on his feet, meaning Evan, even if it took a little pushing. Tori's confused. What do you mean? And that's when he admits to the whole scheme that we were blind to. Turns out that Bevco reached out to the electric company because Evan noticed the bills, the delinquent bills, and they put a little pressure on the electric company, and they turned off the electricity sooner than they had to. I think that there was a scene in this movie where Tori tells Evan explicitly about the book and about the the electric company bills, the past due bills. Or there's a scene where we see Evan explicitly go into the back and sees them himself. Neither of those happened in the movie, so it just seems like a bunch of big coincidences that Evan happened to nail this information. Before Tori can react, the board member arrives. They're already sitting at the table, so he just sits down, and she doesn't really have the room or the capacity to react properly now that this big wig is there. He thanks Tori for helping him take down that dimwit up north. He explains the whole ordeal, what actually happened way back when. He and his wife were heading back from a trip, and the GPS recommended the brewery. They go, and it's terrible. There's no quality control. Places like that are ruining our industry. He even told the guy that. Then Evan asked the board member to leave. No respect, no regard for authority. Tori asks, what's the plan for the brewery? We're going to keep it open, right? Nope, they're going to close it and turn it into a gas station, which is very similar to a 7-Eleven. So this sets Tori off. She starts losing it. She starts to disconnect from reality. The sounds that the sounds of the restaurant, the music that we're hearing in the background, they start to dim. So this is she's just totally disconnecting from reality. She breaks through the din and says, look, I have to go. I don't like you, either of you. The board member tells her she ought to keep her wits about her and sit back down. So she gives a big speech about how this sort of business is not what she signed up for, and she quits. Back at the brewery, Evan and Freddie make peace with the fact that this is their last night in the brewery. Jake is coming by the next day to close the deal. They're barely going to make any money out of it at this point. They're checking the numbers we might get a couple of bucks between us. Freddie has an idea. Look, why don't we go out with a bang? We'll have a big Christmas party the next day before Jake arrives. We can use up the rest of the beer that we've made. Evan thinks it's a great idea. That's what they're going to do. Then we cut to Tori being at home, being sad. She tries to call Evan. We see him get the call, but he ignores it. Instead, she starts typing on her laptop. Back to Evan. He swallows his pride and calls his dad. He tells him about the party and how he was hoping that his dad might come. We find out his dad said he'll be there. Evan, in this scene, is great. It gets a little bit better in a moment, though. The next day, we get a procession of people arriving for the party. We have Freddie and his pregnant wife, the young couple from the inn, even Evan's mom and dad. His dad stops to talk to Evan, because Evan said, I'm really sorry I haven't talked to you in a while. And his dad says, I understand why you didn't call. And he tells him that he's been talking to people around town about what Evan has done for them, and he's really proud of his son. And this is really nice, and it brings a tear to my eye in this moment. It was a really wonderful set of circumstances that brought me to feeling that scene. So good job, movie. Just then, Jake drives up. He's early. Evan tells him in no uncertain terms that he is not welcome there until it's time to sign. But then Tori also arrives with the beer writer in tow. Oh, man. The beer writer explains that he got a call the night before. He might have gotten the wrong impression about this place. He finds out that that there might have been more than he was led on to understand. He said he tried to get out of coming back to this place, but Tori was quite relentless. Evan says that sounds about right. Tori explains what Jake did. Evan is pissed. I think, so at this point, Evan finds out what Jake did by getting the electricity turned off and rigging the game so that there was no chance that Evan could win. And I think in an older decade, maybe the 80s, maybe the 90s, I think Evan would have just punched him. But I think that in this modern day of being more aware of the results of such, exorbitant actions, you can't just punch somebody. You could get in trouble by the law, but you could also get sued. So I think that there simply is too much challenge. There's too much of a challenge in trying to do a scene that way where we get that visceral reaction of, he punched that guy. He got what he wanted out of it. Because then our brains are going to be like, he's going to get sued. This guy works for a big beverage company. He's almost certainly going to be litigious. He's going to sue him. So we don't get the satisfaction of Evan getting to punch this guy right in the kisser. Evan decides to double down. He goes, look, he could try a beer today, and if we make the top 10, you still have to keep your word on what the deal was. The writer says, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but no, there's no guarantee that I'm going to like the beer that much. Evan understands. Inside, the writer asks for another Pilsner. This time, carbonated, please. And everybody has a quiet laugh, but everybody's also really nervous. The writer sips it, and he says, that's a significant improvement. Unfortunately, it's not top 10 material. He's sorry. He really is, but it is what it is. Evan speaks up. He needs a guy. I just need to try one more beer. Just try one more. The writer sort of protests, but then he gives in. He says, Freddie, go get your beer. It's a Christmas ale. Freddie's not sure. He says, you haven't even tried it. And he goes, no, I trust you, Freddie. Go get your new beer. So he does. And they pour it into a glass, and the writer smells it, and he goes, that's something. And he tastes it, and he says, interesting. And then he tastes it again, and he goes, that's good. That's very good. They ask him, is it top 10 good? And he replies, that's one of the best beers I've ever had in my life. And everyone cheers. It's in the top 10. Jake is furious. The writer leaves out the front door of the bar. He doesn't actually get to leave because Tori drove him there. But as I said, Jake is furious. Jake tells Tori that his lawyers will be in touch. Tori wishes everyone a Merry Christmas and leaves. She's a very sad person doing this because she feels that even though things have gone okay, she's still tethered to this bad thing, and there's no chance Evan's going to trust her anymore because of this horrible ordeal. So she leaves, and she's very sad. Evan tells her to wait, though, and he thanks her for what she's done. She says, yeah, but I caused all of it. I thought I was helping, but then something changed. I realized that's not who I want to be. And she knows that he probably wants nothing to do with her, but she thinks she can still help him, and she passes him the business pitch that she'd written. He stops her from leaving again. He goes, what changed? She says, I fell for someone. Now they're outside. He rushes up and he goes in to give her a kiss, and they're kissing, and I'm like, where's the writer? And then we hear from the writer. He gets out of the car. He was in the car right next to where they were kissing. And he says, just give me the keys. And we cut to him driving away, leaving Tori still at the brewery, able to enjoy her time with the guy that she likes. Everybody cheers, and that's the end of the movie. Also, the music was really good in this movie. It's not so much the music itself was good. It was enjoyable music, but it was also used really well in the movie. Like the moments when they would hit a music cue was done very well, and I'm mentioning that because I noticed in the credits there was about 4 or 5 songs that were from a library of some sort by a creator. But then all of the rest of them were credited to, I believe, the woman who was at the bar, and her name is Katie with a Caity, Gallagher. So if you're interested in what this movie sounds like at times, look up Katie Gallagher and you might enjoy it. That's it. That's the movie. Let's talk about some details. And we're not doing the tropes anymore. I've chosen not to do the tropes, but I'd still like to do the moral of the movie. The moral of this movie is to, let's see, really it's just to not lie. Tori lies to Evan about what the deal could be, what it is, and not knowing how duplicitous Bevco could be, or Tori still had the ability to be, led him to trusting Jake when he shouldn't have, when he made that deal. Like when everybody makes you a deal that's good and they're on the other side from you, you might want to check around the corner to see what's going on. So I'd say the moral of this movie is to be honest, don't lie. The MVP of this movie, I'm going to give it to Evan, the character and the actor who played him. He was really good. I really bought into him. I believed him. He never behaved so extreme that I thought, okay, he's just doing this for effect. I mean, there was the bit where he kept apologizing for the same moment over and over again. But beyond that, I thought he did a good job, and I choose Evan to be this movie's MVP. So that's it. We made it through 3 episodes, only 57 more to go, 57 movies, 57 podcasts, and 57 more times that you're going to hang out with me. Until then, of course, enjoy some Jingle Bells, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.